I'd like to welcome to Clark College today, a graduate of Clark College, Lindsey Norberg from Johnson Bixby.
Hi guys, I'm Lindsey. I work for Johnson Bixby. They're downtown Vancouver. Their main thing that they do is wealth management, and I mostly work for the owner. She is a serial entrepreneur and she owns several businesses and is associated with a lot of nonprofits. So I do a lot of work not only for Johnson Bixby, but for some of her other businesses and nonprofits like Integrated Tax Services, The Difference, which is a clothing boutique, and I also work with some nonprofits like Columbia Springs and Global Children's Giving Circle. So just a few of the things that I do. Today I tried to put a presentation together that I thought would be useful to you. It's information that I would have wanted to hear when I was getting ready to graduate from Clark. So I hope it's useful. I'm going to try and do it really fast, and then if you have questions, feel free to ask me at the end, or contact me with more questions if there's something specific that you want more information on. I call it the creative hustle, because I feel like something I learned was, I wish I would have been hustling in school, so that when I got out of school, I was a little bit more prepared for having a portfolio and getting ready to present my work to an employer. Hey guys, that's me. Actually, Bruce took this photo, just so you know. I have some fun facts about me, which might be interesting to know, is that I failed my first HTML class at Clark. And I retook it with Bruce, and that's when I met Bruce. And he's just been a great teacher. He took something that was difficult for me to learn and made it easy, and made sure that I got it. And then I ended up having a career where I use HTML. I mostly use WordPress, but kind of shows you that major shift of when you get kind of the right teacher to help you out and you ask questions. It's just more about learning it in a way that is useful to you. It took me 10 years to get my associates, but just under 2 years for my bachelor's. I think that I learned a lot at Clark, and it was really impactful. I don't regret my time here. I think very fondly about it. In fact, I liked my time at Clark more than I liked my time at WSUV. It's just different. Something that I learned was that my associates is more hands-on and technical. You're learning more about how to use programs, where a little bit more on a bachelor level, you're learning more about theories and talking about how to use a program. So it's different. We're hands-on in doing stuff. And of course, I told you about my dog, Barley. His name is Barley Davidson. If you get the joke there, you can follow him on Instagram. And I love the color periwinkle. Oh, there he is. He's a miniature wiener dog. All right. What I'm going to cover today is about making a coffee budget, how to hustle in school right now, how to stand out when looking for a job, how to network like a pro, creating lasting relationships. Freelancing is not for everyone. My dream job, or how to get the dream job and keep it. How to stay current once you graduate, because that's something that you'll notice is you're learning all this information, and then you get out in the real world and you're like, oh gosh, and it'll get old, and you're going to need to keep up with it. You're going to keep up with technology. And the side hustle. Starting off with making a coffee budget, something that was recommended to me and it really stood with me when I was in college was taking time to ask people that you are really interested and intrigued about out to coffee. You should take time to find people that inspire you, or you want to learn more about their jobs, or you're interested in a career, and you should invite them to coffee, because everybody has time for coffee. Everybody has 20 or 30 minutes. And so I suggest that you start asking somebody maybe once a week or once a month just to coffee. And if you haven't done it, just do it once. If you want to practice coffee date, you can take me. Not that I'm not saying, well, that's not what I meant, but I just meant if you want to meet somebody and talk to them and ask them thoughtful questions and find out, what makes them tick and how they can help you. I believe that you can learn something from everyone. The famous Bruce saying, "Eat your shit sandwich." So how to hustle in school right now. So there's going to be a lot of stuff you have to do that you don't want to do, and you're just going to need to do it. You really are, and you're going to need to know how to do it and do it good, and you're going to need to know how to do it with a smile and to make it appear like you're enjoying what you're doing. and it sucks, but get good at it. I think that everything that comes your way is an opportunity, no matter how much it sucks. Think of it that way. Every time something that's really crummy happens to you, it's something good can come out of it if you have the right perspective and outlook on life. There's a show out there called The Secret. If you haven't seen it, I think it's great. It's on Netflix. I think that you should really be building your portfolio now and things that you can show to somebody when you get out of here, because when you get out of here, it's too late. Think of every homework assignment that you have right now as an opportunity to build your portfolio. Don't spend 30 an hour, minutes, on your homework. Do it to your best ability. Make it good. Make it like you're making it for a client now, because you're going to have clients really soon. And you want to show those clients everything you're capable of doing. When I had assignments in school, I didn't just do the assignment. I went home and I hopped on YouTube. I hopped on lynda.com. I hopped on Skillshare, and I really learned my assignments. And I made it fun. This assignment was boring. Sorry, Bruce. I made it into something I was excited to do. I wanted to make it something that I cared about. And so I found a way, an angle to twist it. And in a way, that's kind of being rebellious. You take a homework assignment that you don't want to do, and you tweak it, and you make it something you want to do. Make it something you're proud of and something you want to show a client, when you get out of school. It's important to start building your presence online now. Somebody once told me that when somebody Googles your name, you want to be on every single mark when they Google you. And so you should be on every platform, and you should have those accounts, and you should be looking good, and you need to clean up your accounts. There's actual websites out there right now that will skim through your accounts to make sure that you don't have any profanity or images or things like that are bad. Clean up your accounts, look good. People are going to be Googling you. You're going for a job, you're going for an interview. Clean up your accounts. Have a good profile picture that shows your face. Oh, and like always, know your value. Make sure that you know what you feel you're worth out in the workplace, and then add tax, especially if you're going to be freelancing. So take whatever you want to make hourly. You have to add on your benefit. You have to add on your programs that you're using. So if you're using Adobe programs, you have to add on anything that's above and beyond your car insurance and things like that. You have to think about what it takes to be sustainable. Some people actually take a calculation of what it takes to survive on the budget that they want, and they do reverse. So, what do you need to live on, and then reverse find out how much that is per hour, and then add tax. And then the last thing that I really learned when I was in college, which was really a hard thing to learn, is that it never gets easier. You think you're stressed now, you think that you don't have any time now, it's just going to get harder. So these are some important lessons that I learned. And that's just kind of cute. So how to stand out when you're looking for a job when you graduate. This is something that I thought that I kind of had a unique touch for, or I had some creative ideas, is that I didn't actually plan on applying to jobs that were listed on Indeed or those places. I wanted to find an agency that I was interested in, and no matter whether or not they were hiring, I wanted to go introduce myself to them. I didn't want to have a line of people in front of me. I wanted to be the only person they were looking at. And so I had some creative ideas on how to do that, was just to research agencies or places I wanted to work, and to kind of work backwards. Don't look for job postings, look for the place you want to work, and find out how to get your foot in the door. I really wanted to work, or one of the places that really inspired me was Blue Blazes. They're downtown Vancouver, and they came in and they were one of my professional practice people that came and spoke, and I'll talk about them a little bit later, but they really inspired me, and I thought they were so much fun. And I had this idea that the way I was going to stand out is I was going to thank them for coming to my class, and I was going to ask them about meeting with me for coffee, and I was going to ask them about if I could intern because I was still in school. And I thought it would be really fun to send something in the mail, like a shoe or a hat or something, because you can actually send really fun items in the mail and just make a way to stand out. I thought maybe I might send like a telephone in the mail, and on it have my phone number and say, give me a call. Just fun ways to stand out from everybody else and eliminate the possibility of even having competition. Oh, network like a pro. one of my techniques for networking is kind of silly, but it actually really works. I haven't heard anyone else use this technique before, but find somebody else who's shyer than you are and take them networking. So I have this gal I went to school with, and I really liked her, and she was so shy. And she asked me to go networking with her, and I did. And what ended up happening is I felt the need to introduce her to people, and I felt the need to kind of make some conversation because she was my friend and I really cared about her. But then I realized that it made me network better. And so bring a friend, bring somebody that you care about with you, and you're just going to step up to the plate and want to network and kind of introduce your friend and like get your friend, oh, have you met my friend, this and that. Some of the other things that made me really stand out when I was networking in the field was Googling the business before I went to a networking event. I would stand outside, quickly look them up, check their latest blog posts, check their Facebook. It takes 15 minutes, not anything. And then I would be like, oh, they just released this software. Walk in, find an employee, and be like, hey, I heard you guys just released this software. Can you tell me more about that? And just started that dialogue off of something that really impressed them because I was knowledgeable about their company and who these people were. And so that was something that really made me stand out, and it opened the gate. And also, when networking with people, focus on them. Focus on them until they start focusing on you. And if you just start having a conversation with somebody one-on-one, and you keep talking to them, and you just keep asking them questions like, how long have you worked here? Do you like it here? Are you from the area? Is this a fun job? What do you do for fun? Do you go to like some food carts nearby? Eventually, they're gonna be like, wow, I've been talking about myself for a really long time. This is awkward. I should probably ask this person a little bit about themselves. And they are so nice. And the conversation will flip, and they'll be like, oh, why did you come here? And then you'll be like, oh, actually, I got my portfolio right here. And you're waiting for your opportunity. Don't jump in, wait for them to ask. And just keep focusing on building that relationship with them and finding out who they are. You may end up really liking them. They may end up opening a lot of doors for you. This is a cute little video. If you guys haven't seen it, it's how to care for your introvert friend. And so it's just there. And I'm not going to play it, but you should look it up, or I'll give you my slides. Build your community of support. So another thing that happens after you graduate is you're on an island by yourself, and you're no longer getting feedback from your teachers, and you're no longer getting feedback from your friends. And you create something and you're like, is this good? Oh, I don't know. I don't have anybody to ask. And so what you need to be doing is making sure that you're finding friendships in this room with people that you want to continue knowing after school and asking questions to about your work. One of the places I do that with is called the Designers League, and it's a Facebook group, a private Facebook group that I found that's actually based out of the UK. I really like them, and I invite some of my friends to them, and it's a great place to be like, hey, I'm having this issue with my client. Hey, I made this logo, but I feel like something's not right, or how should I price this, or this is the quote I'm going to give a client. And they just have thousands of people on there that just respond day and night, and it's a great source of asking questions and being vulnerable and getting different perspectives. I get people on there that are jerks, and that's okay, because I also get people that are really kind. And the people that are jerks also have really good, valuable feedback. You just have to learn how to change your perspective on what they're saying and try and read through whatever it is that they have said. Pros and cons of freelancing. Hold on a second. As I mentioned earlier, paying your taxes if you're freelancing is a huge problem. So off of the wages I make now, I think I make, these numbers are going to be a little off, but just for a perspective on kind of what happens, whatever salary I'm making, I'm taking home, let's say, about 80% of it. If I was freelancing, I'd be taking home about 60% of it. So just as a perspective of how much more you're taxed as a freelancer is incredible. But because I'm working for a company and getting a salary, they're taking the hit for me. And the government is giving them a tax break because of it. So you'd make more money working for an agency. I also find that working for an agency has taught me a lot of soft skills, like talking to people, and they're willing to invest in me to learn those soft skills. And when you're freelancing, you don't really learn it. And so if there's any advice I'd give you, would be not to freelance right now. Find a company that's willing to invest in you and freelance later in life, once you've kind of gained those soft skills that that company has decided to invest in you because you're worth it. So how to keep a job. You know, you found your dream job, you're looking for a job. One of the biggest things that my employer does or is looking for is people that are teachable, people that are coachable, people that are willing to take feedback. It is more important to be willing to grow than to be the best. We would rather take number two, the second place person that's not as good or isn't as fast, because they're a pleasure to work with. They make things fun. They have a good attitude. They're willing to grow. They're willing to take feedback. They're willing to make edits. Do not have to be the best to get a great job. You have to have the best attitude. You have to ask for feedback. And again, on the continued learning, a lot of the places I go, as I mentioned, for creating your tribe and your community of people that you're going to network with now and create those relationships now, and that includes your teachers, like Bruce, and making sure that you have those connections, even for, let's talk about letters of recommendation, because you're going to need those. There's other places that I find useful, like lynda.com, Skillshare, YouTube. I follow thought leaders that inspire me. I follow their blogs. I follow their websites. Follow them on Twitter. I keep informed. Just trial and error, go in there, make some projects, try and, fool around, see what you can do. And again, ask people to coffee. Get involved in your community, find VDA, find your local meetups, and do it. And as I mentioned earlier, there was the group, the Blue Blazes, that came to one of my professional practice classes, and one of the things they spoke about that really has impacted me years later was talking about the importance of a passion project. Their concept and their theory was that you are not providing your best self to your employer unless you have something outside of work that you're passionate about. If you're not doing something outside of work that excites you and takes your mind off of work and then you're happy and really driven to do, then you're not going to show up to work and bring your best self, because you're just going to get up and go through the motions every single day. So whatever that passion project is, you need to figure out what it is and do it. Make time for it. The man who spoke was talking about how he was making a board game, and he would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning before work and he'd go down to a coffee shop and he'd sit there and he'd have his little journal and he'd journal and he'd be writing about this game that he was really inspired about. And then he'd go to work and he'd have a great day at work because he took the time to give himself what he needed. And it's a little bit of self-care. I guess that's it. I made it pretty quickly, about 30 minutes. Is there any questions specifically that anyone had about any of the topics that I brought up? Any situations that you may have that, or am I supposed to wait till the end to ask?
No, go.
That anyone had questions on?
So you're talking about a networking event.
Yes.
What is a networking event?
There's different kinds of networking events, and just because it's not called a networking event, you can network. I meet people all the time at coffee shops just by them being in line in front of me. Every person you meet is an opportunity to find out who they are. Specifically, I would do meetup.com, and I would go to like Vantechy was one of them that I would go to, and different other ones. There's one, it's a week in Portland, Design Week Portland. That was one that I went to every year. I'm more of a designer than I am like a programmer, so I go more focused on that. But those Design Week Portlands are looking for both programmers and designers. And what they are is a bunch of agencies in Portland will open their doors for a full week there's a lot of workshops and speakers, and you would go and you just go and network with all these agencies and the people there, and they have food, and you're just like, hey, how's it going? Eat their food. You find out, you know, who their clients are and what they're doing, and that's where I would go. We went as a class, which was really nice for one of the days, and brought my friend. And one of the tips we found very useful is that if you go to a building, a lot of the times there'll be like 6 agencies in it. Get more bang for your buck. Instead of trying to park and repark to all these open agencies, because it can get hard, especially if you're busing. Any more questions on that? Did I cover your question?
Well, how did you freelance?
I did not freelance. I was very, very fortunate. I was introduced to somebody, and I had lunch with them over a 6-month period of time while I was in school, and they were wanting to offer me a freelancing job. And I just kept meeting with them, showing them my portfolio, having lunch, and they actually ended up really liking me. So after I graduated, they said, hey, I want you to meet me for lunch. And I was like, all right. So I met him for lunch, and her. And she said, you know, I really like you. I think that you're really, you know, motivated and passionate, and I'd like a makeup position for you. And that's where I work at. So I just hustled, met people, went on these lunch, you know, to meet this gal, but I had no intentions of her owing me something or needing a job. I just met with her. I liked her. Showed her my work. I brought my resume. I showed her things I was working on in class. She showed me some examples of some branding stuff they had, and she asked for feedback, and I gave her real valuable feedback on her current packets. But I was respectful. You know, it's like, oh, I can see what you're doing here, but you know, if it was up to me, I'd make some of these small changes, which I think would be really impactful.
How did you meet her initially?
She was somebody set us up. So somebody was like, you know, I think you should meet my friend, and said like a coffee. So. Go ahead.
How do you filter what should and shouldn't go into your portfolio?
It's a great question. So you should filter it around what you want to do. You should not have stuff in your portfolio that you don't want to make, even if it looks good. So if you want to build websites, you should have, or you know, websites, let's say for photographers, you should have photographers' websites in your portfolio. You don't need to have this toy company over here, you know, because that's not what you want to do. You want to show what you want to make. So that's first off. And also you should be updating your portfolio pretty regularly with new stuff that you're proud of, so that it shows your growth. And when you have a piece that isn't that good, I would get rid of it. You probably need between, I'd say about 10, 15 pieces. 10's probably a pretty good number, no more, no less. And it's okay to make things in your portfolio that aren't for real clients, I would say. Make fake clients until you get real clients. And make sure they're the kind of clients that you want to have, so that those kinds of clients are attracted to your work.
Well, I just had a question, if you can speak on, now that I've graduated and I wanted to freelance and I didn't, and I've got a almost full-time job, but I left it at 30 hours a week so I could side hustle.
Yes.
So my eggs don't come from one basket. Can you speak to more how you work a regular job and do the side hustle, which is, I guess it's kind of like a freelance, but you still have your main job, but through random jobs, and balancing your primary, but still getting that extra things, because I like to do that so I can keep up on my design work, keep networking, and just like they're just starting to come to me, because now that I didn't seek them, but now that I am doing this, people are seeking me out to do stuff, and I want to say yes, and I do sometimes. So how do you balance work?
That's a great
and side
question,
hustle?
and I would be honest with you and tell you something I'm currently struggling with and currently learning and finding my boundaries with. I would say that it's okay to say no to a client and to know your boundaries and only take on the work you want to take on. I would be really clear with the clients you are taking on and making sure that you're getting paid fairly. I wouldn't just take them for cheap because they're offering you work, because you don't want to pull on a work on your plate while you're having a 30-hour week job, and then it just becomes this big monster and it's not worth it and you're not being paid enough. I would just continue with building your portfolio with things that inspired you and really looking for the clients that you did want to work with. So, but I guess that's up to you. Now you can be creative with finding your clients though. so one of the recommendations that I made is like, let's say that you're going to church and they're passing out those little flyers that you get every day.
That's what I made.
Yeah, so like those kinds of things are, and I would say, I'll do it for you, but I want to put my logo on it.
Okay.
And so on the back of it, have your contact information and it says made by blank blank with your phone number or your website or your email address, because nothing's for free. But the fact that it's getting distributed there, if people like it, they know it's you. And if they don't have somebody that they can bring you a client and be like, oh, there's this gal at my church and she makes our flyers. I think they're really cool. You know, actually, here's one of her flyers from last Sunday. And so finding those opportunities through nonprofits or the downtown, VDA, in different ways of finding things that need help. You know, I just even Google websites downtown of people that places I go, and I look at their website and I'm like, oh my God, they need help. And I just email them. Some of the clients of when I was working at a marketing agency as an intern, I would email them 3 times before I would get a response. And there was nothing wrong with those first 3 emails. In fact, they were completely needed. Every time I emailed them, be like, hey, I emailed you about a month ago. I'm sure you're just really busy. I just wanted to really let you know I'm motivated and really, want to work with you. And I think that I had some information that you would really be valuable to you. Completely non-judgmental, completely kind. And they would reach back and be like, yeah, man, it's been really busy. I'm so glad that you've contacted me. I do have some work that I really need to get done, just busy or something. So, I don't know who's first. Who's back there?
What would be an ideal time interval to update your profile?
What do you mean?
Like 3 months or 2 months or just
like right now? Like how frequently do you update your photo? How frequently do you update your content? How frequently do you update, like what more specifically?
Just personal information on profile.
Well, it should always be up to date with your information that you want, so your phone number and different stuff. If you're talking about a blog, I'd say a couple times a week, weekly, if not monthly, you should be updating that. If you're talking about portfolio, I'd say every 3 to 4 months, 6 months, depending on how frequently you're getting in new work. If you're talking about a photo, you should probably update it about at least once a year. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. How long did it take you after Clark to get a related job, or did you have one when you graduated?
I walked into my job.
Okay.
I was hustling before I left school, and so I was really fortunate to have built those relationships with people. And I just met somebody, and they saw that I was motivated, and I had a good attitude, and I was not the best. I will tell you that.
Right.
I think you were over here first.
Can you talk a little bit about your current job?
Oh, my current job. I could say a lot about that. Is there something? Ask me a more specific question.
I'm just wondering, like, what exactly you do, what your job title is.
I would say that I'm working for an agency where at first I was the only person at the agency, so I wore a lot of hats. I do a lot of WordPress stuff. I do a lot of design work. I'm making business cards. I'm doing headshots. I'm making flyers. I'm building brand books. I'm designing brands and websites. So it's a lot of stuff. When you're working for smaller agencies, there's a plus and a negative. The plus is that you get to do a lot of little things, but the negative is that I'm doing a lot of little things. And so it means that I'm not getting good at one specific thing. Our department has recently grown, which means that there's 2 people there, which means that I've had the ability to focus more on design, which has been wonderful. But I miss some of the other things. And so, but collaboration is great. You can't make great design by yourself. It just doesn't happen. And that's what's so important about creating your community and your tribe, the people that you trust. Thanks. You're next.
What's your favorite work that you've done?
What kind of what?
What's your favorite work that you have done?
Oh, my favorite work.
Design.
What I'm most proud of, or my favorite work?
Both.
What I'm most proud of? Well, there's 2 things I'm most proud of. One is our current Clark.edu website. I created the wireframe for our website. When I went to school here, I was an intern in the marketing department, and I did research on what current colleges were doing and what their websites look like and why they were doing it and rebrands. And I presented a set of wireframes to our school, and I said, this is what I think our website should look like, and this is why. And they took it and they gave it to our current designers, and then they made our website. And so I got to be part of that process, and I got to learn a lot about branding. And I love learning about branding, and I love small businesses. And so I guess that's a good one that I'm proud of. Something that I really like would be, I have it's called my Modern Family Crest, and it was a Skillshare class, which I love Skillshare classes. And it was about creating a logo about your name. It has my name, and it's like kind of like a boaty sailor feel to it. I don't have a picture of it, sorry, but I just loved it, and it was a really fun class on Skillshare, and then I got to put it in my portfolio, and that's a great way to build your portfolio, is doing Skillshare classes. I think this guy goes first.
What was some of the projects that you did here at Clark to build your portfolio?
Oh gosh, I mean, it was just dependent on the class. Some of the resume ones, I actually had a really cool design resume. I had some great little websites. I had, let's see, my InDesign classes, so we were working with like a zoo poster, and then we had some invitations that we did in that InDesign class. We did some typography posters. We did a bunch of just different things. I made some animations in After Effects that are really awesome.
Was that on your own time, or was that during a class?
Okay, so like I mentioned before, like it is a class assignment, but somebody else might spend an hour on something I spent 40 hours on, and so they were killer. I think that you actually had a question.
Yeah. How's the Gutenberg update gonna affect you if you work on WordPress and all?
Okay, so Gutenberg, I know that that's coming, and I'm not exactly sure at this time how it'll affect us. I don't think it will, but we actually subcontract out our programmer. I do kind of more of the front end. I'll do some of the smaller stuff working with WordPress, but if we are going to do a big change, we'll subcontract out the work to somebody else to do it. And so she would probably know more about that because she's more of an expert. You really shouldn't do work unless you're really good at it and you're keeping good up on your skill, because she's going to do it faster than I am because I just don't do it all the time and I can't keep up on everything.
I was just going to make that comment about the portfolios. Always bring your portfolio with you on a job, even if you don't think you're going to want to do it, because I brought mine and they didn't ask me to, and I brought it anyways and out of curiosity. And the thing that I had in there that I thought they would want to see, what they liked about it was I had a picture of a food image, and because the manager is a food blogger on the side, they made that connection, and that was one of the weird standards. It wasn't all my design work, it wasn't the website, it was just random things. So I say, like, bring it with you, put your favorite pieces in there, and you never know, like, when you might need it. Keep it in your car, keep an extra one in your car, because you never know when you're going to need it.
And that's what's good about having a virtual portfolio as well. Yeah. So you can pull it out of your pocket and make sure the pieces that are in there that you are really proud of is something that you want to show people. We're good? Question? I don't think there's anything that I didn't say that I think would be important.
Lindsay, I have one final question for you, if that's okay.
Go for
it. If
it.
you had to do Clark over again, what would you have done differently?
My first thought is actually nothing, even though I originated as a business and transferred over into graphic design. But my second thought is I would do more self-care.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lindsay, for your time today. That was wonderful. I'd like to welcome today another Clark College graduate, Adeena Rose Wade.
Thank you for having me. So, as Bruce said, I graduated from Clark College. I started here in September of 2016, and I spent 3 years here. I came in not knowing what I wanted to do. I had a general area. I started out in graphic design and photography. and was thinking I was going to go in that direction. But because I knew I wasn't going to make the kind of living I would want from that, I was open to other options. And that one of the things that I thought of was going into web stuff, and that's what eventually led me to Bruce's class. And unfortunately, as much as I loved his class, HTML wasn't fun without him. I discovered out after the fact, so I learned that that's not where I wanted to go. But I graduated I started in 2013, graduated in 2016, and then I transferred to WSUV Vancouver in January of 2017, where I am still a student. I am a double degree student, meaning I'm going to get 2 pieces of paper when I walk across the stage. My first will be integrated strategic communications, and my second is social sciences, concentrating in women's studies and psychology. I don't really know what I want to do with all of that, but I'm not too worried about that. Just going with the flow. I also chair the student media board on campus, which is the kind of the administrative body that oversees all of our student media organizations, which are Coug Radio, the Salmon Creek Journal, and the Vancouver, which is our student news magazine. It was formerly a newspaper, but they've made a transition in their format as a magazine style, and they have a lot more soft writing type news that they're doing now. And I also work in the Office of Marketing and Communication at the university, which is such a cool thing for me to do because I'm learning all of this stuff in my classes, and then I get to walk over to the office and actually get to do it. I was originally hired there to help out with their website because of Bruce and his mad teaching skills. I know some HTML and CSS stuff, which helped me get into WordPress, and I got to work in that a little bit at the Portland Rose Festival. And so that enabled me to get that job. That was the primary focus why I was hired. But because I'm skilled in other areas, I get to have fun in other ways. My actual primary role now at this job is mostly writing. I do a lot of writing for the university, so press releases, stories for our magazine. I get to ghostwrite for the chancellor once in a blue moon, and just small writing assignments here and there. I also get to do some photography, which is what I have been doing the longest. I've been in it for about 8 years now, I want to say. And I'm also a designer, not a pro, but I do get to dabble in that a little bit too. I am 23 years old, and I have had, I believe, 11 titles at a handful of different organizations. I had my first job at 16. I worked for Sunlight Supply, which are any of you familiar with the Clark County Amphitheater? It's currently titled the Sunlight Supply Amphitheater. They are the name sponsor. My mother was the one who got me that job. She knew that I liked photography at the time, and I was thinking about a career in photography, but she wanted to show me what the real world was like. And she was like, okay, we need some help in this area in marketing at this company. So she went to the boss and said, hey, can we hire her on part-time so she can learn and help us at the same time? I ended up staying there for almost 6 years. And it was a fantastic first job. I learned a lot, but it was very repetitive. And it was draining because it was repetitive. And I was either stuck behind a computer all day long, or I was stuck in a dirty studio photographing products. And there wasn't a whole lot of room for creativity. So I learned really quickly what I didn't want in a job. It didn't help me figure out what I wanted to do in a job, but it helped me narrow my focus a little bit more. I also worked for the student news publication here at Clark under a variety of titles. I started out as a reporter. I actually had to learn how to run before I knew how to walk. It was one of those things where my mass media professor one day said to me, hey, you're a good writer. You should seriously consider taking journalism. And it was one of those classes I had always eyed, but never prioritized, and there was always some sort of scheduling conflict, so I never took it. And her words, for whatever reason, stuck to me, and I was like, you know what? If I don't do this, am I gonna regret it? And I was like, you know what? I think I am. And so the only way I could take that course was if I took that mass media communications course over again, because they were paired together as a learning community. So while I was working out my honors component to add on to this class, I got introduced to who would be my journalism professor, Deanne Finken. And of course, being the journalist that she is, she sits me down, plays 20 questions with me, and then she's going, why aren't you at the Indy? I'm like, what? I don't know. And she's like, it'll be a tight fit, but we can squeeze you in if you want to come be in this class. And so I actually ended up taking it, and the very first journalistic story that I ever wrote was for the news publication. It was actually printed and published. I had to go out and call state legislators and talk to all these people, and I was so outside of my comfort zone. But at the same time, it was one of the most rewarding things I ever did, and I'm so glad I did it. And from then on, I got to do some reporting. I helped with photography, a little bit graphic design. I became the social media manager at some point. I was general manager at one point. And that was a few of the titles that I've held. And I've also worked at the Portland Rose Festival. Marilyn Charlie are here today. Marilyn is the chief operating officer of the festival. And I actually ended up there through a special contest that I discovered through volunteering for my local background Rose Float organization. I liked their Facebook page. I saw that they had posted a special scholarship contest in honor of their very first elected Rose Festival queen. And I was looking at it and going, okay, this is completely out of my comfort zone. This is not something I would want to do. I'm like, you know what, why not? There's scholarship money involved, whatever. And as I'm doing this application, I clicked submit. I'm like, nobody in their right mind would choose a college chick from Battleground, Washington for this role. And I was actually one of 3 finalists, believe it or not. And I got to do some really cool things with them that, once again, stepped out of my comfort zone to do them. And I didn't win the contest, but they invited me back. They loved my passion for the festival and its history. And I guess they liked how I interacted with people enough that they invited me back to be a part of their living history program. And they turned me into their very own version of World War II icon Rosie the Riveter. And for 2 years, I got to travel around to elementary schools and share history of what it was like to be a woman in the war, working in the Kaiser shipyards in Vanport, Oregon, which, show of hands, has anybody heard of Vanport before? Okay, so it was a city that was actually built for the war. So it's the Delta Park PIR area. That's where it was. Henry Kaiser, if you're thinking Kaiser Permanente, same guy. He was a big healthcare guy. He built this city to house all of these wartime workers who had come out to work in these shipyards. There was a slew of jobs coming in, and they needed houses for these people. And he built a city for 44,000 people in a very short period of time. And then eventually, and it was 1948, the flood, the Vanport flood washed it all away. The city was gone completely. So I got to share that story. And from there on, I got to be an intern with them. And then I got to be a special events and communications assistant. And I think my proudest accomplishment in that role was getting to write the script for the Starlight Parade. So the festival puts on 3 parades every year: the Grand Floral Parade, the Starlight Parade, and the Fred Meyer Junior Parade. And I got to help work on all of those events and do some pretty incredible things. And I'm only with them seasonally now, but I still love my work with them. And now I'm focused at the university. So that's my background. I want to open the floor for questions now. Anybody? Something about my story, questions that you have thinking about school, work, marketing, events, communications, anything. Marilyn.
So you've done so many things. What's your dream job?
I don't actually have one. And the reason why I called my presentation Destination Unknown is I know where I've been, I know who I am today, but I have no idea where I'm going. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned out of all of the things I've done within the last 8 years is that it's okay. I'm finally comfortable with the fact that I don't know where I'm going, because it's kind of funny. I think back at my life, and every single thing I did led to something else. And if it wasn't for one thing, I wouldn't have got here. If it wasn't for one person inspiring me in this way, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish something over here. And it all leads to one another. So I have a general idea of where I'm going. I want to stay in the marketing, communications, and events area, but I don't have a set goal in mind. Yes.
One of the things I heard that you were talking about, and your title is you get uncomfortable, you get in your uncomfortable zone. Can you speak about how you decide if you're going to go attack something in your comfortable zone because you got the confidence for it, or realizing like, well, that's way beyond my scope versus I want to get uncomfortable? And how do you prep yourself for that and like get the confidence and like go for it?
It's something that I've developed a lot of years. I was that little girl who always hid behind mom. I'm a natural introvert. I was always super shy. And in high school, I slowly started to build my confidence. Clark helped me a lot. WSUV helped me a lot. But I think the one thing that has helped me the most is other people. I've had a lot of great mentors over the years who have encouraged me to do things that I never imagined myself doing. For instance, where I work at the university, my boss, she encouraged me to apply to be the student media board chair. Something I wasn't really thinking about, but she told me to do it, and she kept pushing me and edging me on. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I could do it. I could fit the job description. I'd be capable. And also, I think the more I do, the more it leads to other things. So there's always been some sort of connection that has helped me ease into something. I don't think I've ever really jumped into something head on, like completely out of the blue. So yeah, that answers your question. Yes, Lindsay.
2 questions.
Okay.
First one, it sounds like you've had a lot of writing experiences.
Yes.
And so my question would be, what's your favorite thing you've written, and why? And then the second thing is what's some writing advice that you think would be helpful for the students and for us?
I don't really have one favorite piece. I have my styles. I like to write. I hate essays. I hate writing papers, but I do like writing things if it's for a purpose. So like the Starlight Parade script, I loved. It was tons of fun. It was not something I had done before. At the university, I think what makes me giddy was the fact that I got to ghostwrite for the chancellor. And it was one of those assignments where I had barely any guidance whatsoever. I just had examples of work that had been done by him in the past. And I kind of had to jump in. It was a challenge. And I also, it's short form stuff I like as well. I do a lot of press releases. Those are really easy to crack out. What's interesting is when I do get a writing assignment, there's a lot of anxiety that I have to deal with still, because it's not something that I've always done. Me doing a lot of writing is actually still relatively new for me. So like right now I've got 3 stories that I need to crack out, and I haven't started any of them, and I should have started them a long time ago. So it's getting started is the hardest part. I think the biggest piece of advice that I have is if, like, for other people like me who have that anxiety, is sit your butt down in the chair and just write. You have to get started. That's the hardest part. Once you get started, the flow will be there. You'll be able to build off of something, and even if what you start off with is crap, it's going to lead to something better. And for those who aren't as confident in their writing skills, take advantage of the professors who do writing assignments with. They often have a lot of great advice, and they are more than willing to sit down with you and work with you to help you improve your pieces. Writing centers, I'm pretty sure Clark has one here, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I never used it, so I don't know. But that is an extremely useful resource to take advantage of.
I think I just read that.
Oh yeah, it's coming back to me now. Yep, right over there. Yes, Jerry.
Well, you didn't even mention how good you were with website. I'm the webmaster for the Rose Festival, and she was better than the people I have on staff. Still is somebody I trust to go in and make major changes at the website, And I don't let people do that, so it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, the thing with web is I mean, like I said at the beginning, I was starting to look at it, but I learned I didn't want to make a career out of it. So I have the basics down, but one of the things.
But she could do it if she had to.
Yes,
I'm just saying, she could come in and do a website.
That I'm proud of myself of is if I don't know something, I try to figure out on my own first, because I have always had the resources to do so, even if Google is the main one. And that, I think, has helped me a lot, because I learn a lot better with trial and error and playing with things myself, or if I have an example set out for me from somebody else or something that I've done before, I can build off of it and improve myself on that. And like I said, it was basic coding skills that got me my job at WSUV originally. So, yes.
So the two of you are really good speakers. Is that a natural talent, or is it something you learn?
Not a natural talent at all. I remember in middle school standing in front of the room, bright red, shaking, trying so hard not to cry. I hated public speaking. But it's one of those skills that the more you do it, the better you get. I did take a public speaking class here at Clark, and that one was kind of interesting. I really didn't like it because he recorded us whenever we gave our presentations, and then we had to go back and watch them, which is extremely painful to do. But it helped you identify your weaknesses and what you needed to work on. So I think taking a basic introduction to public speaking class is super beneficial, because you get the main points of what makes a good public speaker, and then practicing enough will help a lot.
Adeena, was one of the assignments you did in this class when you took it to give a 5-minute Ignite style presentation? Was that part of?
Yes, I remember.
What was
that.
your talk about?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I can't remember.
It was that memorable.
I do remember doing that. And the funny thing is, I remember the practice run more than the final run. And I was really confident in the practice run because I had a script. But the final run, I didn't have a script, and my nerves got to me, which is still something I have to overcome every once in a while. I mean, here I'm really comfortable. I don't even have a script. I'm just winging it, because it's just me. I know me best. So, yeah.
What's on your learning list? Things you want to learn that you haven't had time for.
I consider myself to be a lifelong learner. I do know that I know some things, but I also know that there's so much more that I don't know. And one of the things that's kind of frustrating at times is, yes, I have the capabilities to do numerous different things in different areas, but I'm not really good at one thing. So there's always room for me to grow in each of those little areas, and I'm always open to learning new things. Now, if there's anything particular that I want to do, it's actually more a higher level. It's not like a Google it and figure it out kind of thing. One of the things that I've eyed and thought about getting is my CMP, Certified Meeting Planner. It's like a certification, and it's actually more based in the special events field. And that could open a lot of doors for me that I know. What's really funny is I have a lot of people who have dreams for me bigger than I've ever imagined, and dreams that I would have never thought of, that I never knew existed. And one gal, she thinks it'd be really cool for me to travel and help plan high-scale, high-level events for like travel companies or top-tier hotels or resorts, and do cool stuff like that, and travel the world and get paid to have fun and do cool things. And that would, getting my CMP would be one ticket to that.
Do it.
See, there's so many options. So that's the thing. Recently at WSU Vancouver, I got to help participate in, I didn't participate, I got to help set up some branding type, focus group type activities We had the executive director of marketing and communication for the entire WSU system in town, and she's been traveling to all of the different locations of WSU schools. So she went to Everett, I think Spokane, she came to Vancouver, and she's been looking at the brand drivers and some of the keywords behind the WSU brand and a lot of the aspects that they've established, and she's curious to see if they apply to the other campuses or if they apply to just one campus. And she has talked to students, staff, faculty and staff, as well as community members. She spoke to our advisory board and conducted a focus group activity with them. And one of the things that she was telling us is a lot of people in the marketing department over there have been, in Pullman, have been flocking to a new agency that has recently opened up in Moscow, because when you work for a university, a state university specifically, there's not a whole lot of money there because it's a state institution. But if you go for a private company or a private institution, there's a lot more money there. So a lot of people were going over there. And one of the things that my boss suggested to me was that I go work for marketing in Pullman, maybe, if the stars align, and I could work on my master's while I was there. So I don't know, I could get my CMP after school, I could get my master's. I've tossed around the idea of going abroad. There's so many options out there. It's just a matter of figuring out what is right for you.
So what advice would you give students in the audience about certain types of work habits, study habits that they should consider while they're still here?
That's an interesting question. And I say that because my habits have recently changed. I used to be somebody who could pull a ton of all-nighters and work myself to the bone. I could sacrifice sleep. I could eat crappy food. I could not be the healthiest person, but I would be super successful in getting all my assignments done and doing more than I should. That does not last. The energy that you have in college does not last. Just this summer, because I only have to work during the summers, I don't put summer classes on my shoulders. I did that once, it did not work well, and I'm never gonna do it again. And over the summer, my body adjusts to the 8:30 to 5 work schedule, and I get enough sleep, I eat well, and I get to take care of myself. And for whatever reason, after this summer, when I started school again, my body wanted to stay to that schedule, and I haven't been able to get off of it. And I've actually had to prioritize my health over everything else. And it's been a really rough adjustment because I don't have the time in my day to do all that I want to anymore. And I'm behind in almost everything right now. And this next month is gonna be interesting because I get to play catch up because the semester ends the first week of December. So I'd say try to take care of yourself a little bit if you're not already. It's extremely important, and I think the more you lean towards self-care, you might notice that you're working better. Like I learned pretty early on that if I get enough sleep every night, I actually perform better at work and in school because I'm refreshed. My brain gets to do its thing at night when it's rested, and I come in and I actually get more done, and the quality is a lot better. And that, in the long run, benefits you in a lot of ways. So that's one thing. Any other questions? Yeah?
What did you learn from giving your Ignite talk?
Say, I wish I could remember what mine was about. I guess from a public speaking standpoint, I learned to not put as much pressure as myself, or at least I shouldn't be putting as much pressure on myself from that. Because especially in a class, everybody's there to learn, everybody's growing, nobody's perfect, and just try to let yourself relax with that. Because at the end of the day, nobody cares. I mean, no matter how poorly you think you did, they're still gonna go, you were awesome, great talk, great job, and you're still gonna do a good job with it, so.
Lindsay, did you do the Ignite talk as well?
No, I did not.
All right. Okay. Yeah, there was a student in here. She had to leave who was speaking before, who asked a question, who actually said the reason why she got the job that she recently got was the confidence that her Ignite style presentation gave her during the job interview to make a presentation. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that was a
I
few.
say that's pretty accurate. The more things you do like that,
Right.
you're gonna have other situations that are gonna be similar, and then you're gonna think back, oh, I did that thing. I mean, it wasn't my greatest performance, maybe, but I did it. I got through it. I can do this. Yeah, stuff like confidence booster. Because I didn't take this class with you. I took it with Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was one of the first semester or first quarters we offered it here. Yes.
What kind of photography do you do?
So I started in nature photography. It was one of those things where my parents had bought their first digital camera, and they eventually let me go out and play with it. And I think that's when it really started. I mean, I had the fascination when I was younger because my grandfather was a photographer. But when I got to play with that digital camera, I took some photos, and then I actually entered them in the Park County Fair, won some ribbons, which was kind of a clue to me, hey, maybe I'm not so bad at this. And in high school, I worked up the courage to ask some friends to model for me, and I started doing some portraiture. And from there, I've kind of continued to do that. I think now my favorite kind of photography would probably be, with some of my friends, I recently did an engagement session, and that was a lot of fun. But I do my best work is capturing the candid moments. So I find that mostly now in events. So like when I do photography at university, or photographing a party for a friend. I remember Marilyn had a party, and I got to just follow her around all night long and capture all these great little moments, and I took way too many photos, but I loved it. And my boss, I went to a party for her and played photographer, and once again, captured all these cute little moments, because I like to look for the emotion in people and capture that moment and have it forever. Questions? Anything?
I have one last question.
Yes.
What role does the web play in your current job?
In my current job, the web work I do is all around the WSUV Vancouver website. We have it set up in Drupal. So I originally got the job because we were not meeting state accessibility standards. And so my very first task was to do an audit of the website, aka go through every single page on our website, which there were many. And I had to make this long list of all of the PDFs that we had on the site, or even no content heavy pages. And then I went and tackled that list, and one by one I went down the list, and if there was a PDF, I would either delete it or I would turn the content into a web page, so then it was more accessible to access. And now we still are doing some of that. My office doesn't control all of the domains, so we only do like a chunk of them. I want to say maybe 2/3. And then we create new pages when there's that need. We do minor updates, like if committees are updated with people, putting in photos and bios and whatnot. And then every once in a while I get to do some larger pieces of web copies. Like right now, two of the stories I need to write are actually profiles of undergrad student researchers who we're going to feature on a new undergrad website page.
Any other questions for Adeena?
Tips and concerns about getting jobs in the future?
Adeena, talk about your listening skills, because in communications classes we always talk about the speaking side of it.
Yes.
But Lindsay alluded to this too, the need to give and take and the need to listen. I consider you one of the best listeners I know. So talk about, how did you learn to be such a good listener and glean what you need from active listening?
What's funny is public speaking wasn't the natural thing for me, listening was. And the reason why is because I was always so naturally shy and introverted. And my friends, I should say my sister likes to joke that I have an old, slow processor. So I'm not one to talk right away. I like to chew on things a little bit more. It may take me a little bit longer to formulate a question for somebody. And that's simply because I personally need to step back and think about things more before I actually jump into something. Which is why I was always so quiet in class. I needed to chew on it myself. I didn't have questions unless I actually started doing something and was curious. And that's only if the question actually forms in my mind. And the other thing is, I can talk about myself and I can talk, but it's not natural for me and I don't like to do it. So listening is actually a fallback thing for me.
One of my favorite quotes is about listening, and I don't know if you've heard it before, but it's listen with the intent to hear rather than the intent to respond.
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that quote too.
Reminds me of what you're saying.
Yeah, and that one kind of reminds me of a leadership quote, which I can't remember the exact quote, but the basic meaning is you need to learn how to be a follower before you can be a leader.
Good.
And if you don't know how to follow, you can't be a good leader.
Would you say that the softer interpersonal skills are easier to perform rather than the other kind of skills, would you be able to,
I don't think they are easier to form. It takes time and practice and experience to form those. My ability to comfortably talk in front of a group of people, that took me a long time to develop. But I could have learned how to code a website in a matter of a week or less. Those technical skills, while a workplace, and what's interesting is in the workplace today, in the work world, a lot of employers are looking for the soft skills over the other skills because the hard ones can be learned. It's the soft skills that don't exist, and especially with millennials and Gen Z, they were raised by screens. They don't have those interpersonal skills as much. And so if you do have the opportunity here to work on those, I definitely would.
And we've heard that from all the speakers so far, what you just said. It's not always the technical chops that win. It's all the things that Lindsey said and you said about prospective hires.
And what's funny is some people call me the most unmillennial millennial they know, because I do have a bit of an old soul and I prefer the classic forms of communication. I would much rather sit down with somebody face to face and learn about them than exchange emails or message people on social media or stuff like that. While I am versed in the technology, modern day technology, I'm not a huge fan of it. If I could not have a smartphone, I totally would. I didn't get my first smartphone until 2016 or something like that. And it was one of those things where my dad had an old cell phone that it was running on the 2G network and he needed an upgrade. And so he's like, okay, let's get you girls a cell phone. And I finally got a flip phone when I learned how to drive. And then when we needed to do that upgrade, I decided to break away from the family plan and get my own because I was starting to do work, especially with the festival, where I needed a reliable cell phone to text people with, and I needed to be doing social media type activities on it. I needed to be able to be connected wherever I was. But if I could get away with not having a smartphone, I totally would. Any other questions?
Well, a huge thank you, Adeena. That was great.